In God's name. Oh, I cannot go any further. Oh.
Well, that was terrifying, but that's not Hans' voice.
Yeah, this is the investigation of Danton Walker's house in Rockland County, New York in 1952. Hans was there, but he did not lead the investigation. It was under the direction of the legendary psychic medium Eileen Garrett.
Well, Rockland was one of his very first cases, is where my father developed techniques that paranormal investigators still use today.
What's the story there?
Well, Danton Walker was a popular New York columnist who bought this colonial farmhouse in Rockland County in 1942. And immediately he started experiencing objects moving around on their own, full-body apparitions, and he even had physical attacks from unseen entities.
Is that still going on?
Well, Eileen helped the spirit of a Revolutionary War-era servant boy move on. And from everyone I've spoken with, including the current owners, there hasn't been any activity in the house since the 1952 investigation.
My father was obsessed with this case and the surrounding area. And for some reason, he went back to Rockland County dozens of times over the course of the next 50 years.
And that's supported by the stacks of Rockland files I found. But there's one case in the files that Hans didn't get to, the Suffren house. The owner, Bob Mazziello, wrote this letter to Hans in 2007.
That was just a couple of years before he passed, so he wasn't making house calls anymore.
Objects moving on their own, full-body apparition, and it was built during the Revolutionary War era. And this is just like the Danton Walker case.
And a lot of other cases that Hans investigated in Rockland County. I spoke to Bob Mazziello, and he said that since he's written that letter over 10 years ago, the activity has not let up one bit.
Well, if we're going to uncover what Hans was looking for in Rockland County, then this house may be where we find it.
In my book, Ghost Hunter, I describe 23 verified cases of hauntings and other psychic phenomena, and among them is the case of Danton Walker's haunted house in Rockland County, New York.
What is it about Rockland County that brought Hans back here time after time? He was obsessed with it. He wrote extensively about it, and it seems like every time someone reached out to him about a haunting in the area, he dropped everything and went. But one letter, one call went unanswered. The Suffren house. Hans was well into his 80s when Bob Mazziello reached out. But I'm sure that it tortured Hans that he wasn't well enough to take that case. And now, almost 15 years later, we're finally answering Bob's call for help. I see that you had written to Dr. Holzer about 15 years ago. What led you to believe that you have a haunting going on?
I bought the house approximately in 1994. When we moved in the house, there was activity. Things would move. Things would be hidden, toys would move, and I just ignored it for a while until that one night.
Okay.
And I'm up in bed watching TV. And I had eye shot of the door from the bed. It's the front door of the house off the porch. And it opened, a figure walked through, it closed, and I even heard the door knocker slam as the door closed, so I jumped out of bed, and the door was locked from the inside. Yeah.
Did you make out any details of the figure?
It was about 4.5 feet tall. It looked like a woman.
And did you notice anything strange leading up to that night? Anything else that might have happened?
Yeah. I got a new tenant, and there was something about them that wasn't right. They were kind of negative people. And
Were they negative from the get-go, or after they moved in, they began to change?
I mean, they were fine when I interviewed them and when they moved in, and everything was fine.
But once they got in, they started acting strangely.
They had experiences. They just said to me, what's going on in this house? We're losing things. Things are moving.
Would they see things
Yeah, they saw linens coming out of the closet.
move? The linen was actually throwing itself out of the shelves at them?
Coming off the shelves and going, that's what they described to me.
Now, that room is on the second floor of the guest quarters, right?
Yeah. It was what we called the ghost room. No more than 3 weeks later, they said, we can't stay here, and they left.